Now it's time for Inspirational Women, and my first guest, Cherish Hart with the American Heart Association. Cherish is here to provide some guidelines for food donation items, something that many of us do to a greater degree at this time of year. Cherish Hart, good morning, and thank you so greatly for being with us this morning.
Yeah, good morning.
You know, it's very interesting. I'm wondering if you, working for the American Heart Association, have people say to you, what a perfect name you have to work for the Heart Association.
Well, maybe a time or two, Kate. Yes, it does tend to come up.
Well, it's a beautiful name, but I just couldn't help but note that, this just really makes perfect sense. You're in the right place for the right work.
Exactly. That's how I feel about it.
Well, see, all is good then. So we are here, though, to talk very specifically around the Heart Association, but food, and food from the perspective of how we might make this holiday season, when we know that it's a time that we make food donations, or perhaps it's monetary donations, which is all really great. But if we are inclined to do the food itself, to know what we really should be focused on to make really good, healthy choices for those who have food insecurity, right?
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
So how is the Heart Association looking at this, Cherish?
Well, we think about nutrition security overall, because if you don't have good nutrition, it's really hard to have a healthy heart and a longer, healthier life, really, which is our mission. So we want everybody to have access to healthier meals, and not everybody has the ability to afford access to nutritious foods, which is really important to have more access to healthy foods, which then can ensure that you're less susceptible to chronic disease, such as diabetes, high blood pressure, even things like tooth decay, which can contribute to cardiovascular disease as well.
And I think with that one in particular, but it applies to all aspects of our health, is thinking of those very sugary cereals that are really marketed towards our kiddos.
Yeah, sure. Of course. Yeah. And the sugary beverages, of course, are a big culprit with that as well. And then, even you think about things like the little crackers that you might eat, those carbohydrates turn into sugar on your teeth, and that can cause other problems throughout your system as well.
Yes. So this is great that we're really consciously looking at this and then talking about it and helping people to consider this, certainly in terms of our own purchasing for our own food pantries. But when we do want to make donations, the American Heart Association really has helped us by creating a toolkit on their website to guide us along, right?
Yeah, we just placed this on our website recently. It's our Healthier Food Drives Toolkit, or Stocking Healthy Pantries. And the concept was just to help organizations who are wanting to conduct food drives to think about it a little more holistically and have the tools that they need to conduct that food drive. So it's got everything from thinking about which organizations you want to support and maps of finding those, to things like flyer templates that you can use and social media posts to help advocate for it. But also the other piece in there is some advice on what type of foods might be better to provide that would meet the nutritional needs of our neighbors.
Right. So let's touch on them. So we know, of course, making a cash donation is a very simple thing, and
Yes.
Food organizations, right, can make purchases because they have some big buying power.
Yeah, that's always a great way to start. I can't think of any food bank or food access organization that wouldn't be happy with a cash donation, because they usually know best how they want to direct those food purchases, and they can get those bulk buys. So that's a great place to start for sure.
But we may want, particularly if we have children in our family, we may want to have that experience of shopping with them because we want to purchase something that we want to give to others who need it. So in that way, like you said, there is the toolkit, but perhaps you could kind of give us some key points of what we should be looking for, Cherish.
Yeah, that's great. 'Cause, a lot of us want that tangible piece, and I love that idea of doing it with our kids. I know I can do that with my daughter as well. So it depends on the food bank that you're hoping to donate to. It's always great to check their guidelines. But many of them now are especially looking for donations of fresh vegetables and fruit as long as they have the capacity to store those. And that's because that's what people need and people want in the community, right? They often have a hard time affording those through the other benefits they have available. So think about the fresh vegetables and fruit, even though we typically would be doing more of the shelf-stable items. If the organization you're donating to has the capacity, that's always a great one. So that's a good place to start. But as we look at more of the shelf-stable items, depending on the category you're looking for, you want to find things that are either low in sugar, low in sodium, high in protein value, and that also are utilizing whole grains as much as possible, because we know all of those categories help us, thrive in our nutritional needs. So kind of as a broad sweep, so those are some things to think about. We could dive into those categories some more if you think that would be helpful for listeners as well.
Let's see if we can touch on another category and maybe the canned goods.
Yes, because the canned goods, always a good staple to have. So when you're looking at canned goods, one thing I would look for is when you choose those canned vegetables and soups, to look at the sodium levels in them. One way that you can, often they'll be labeled low sodium or no salt added. Those are great options when you're purchasing a canned good because, they haven't added a bunch of sodium to them. So that's a good place to start. And then the same thing with soups. Canned soups often have very high sodium in them. So take a look at the label and how many servings are in it and what the percent of the daily sodium, and you want to shoot for as low as possible. Another thing to think about with soups is that the more you can find ones that are ready to eat from the can versus those that are more condensed and need added water or milk, the better. And that's because many of those soup options, food organizations like to provide to unhoused individuals who may not have the ability to cook those soup products. And so that's another thing to look for in the soup.
Well, I was thinking, yes, that's a really important distinction, is that it's kind of a two-pronged service in terms of there are people who have a residence, they have a home, and they can cook, but the economy being what it is, have a challenge with being able to purchase all they need in terms of food. Plus, then we have the insecurely housed and needing food, and they are able to access the food banks too. So to think that there are those two paths that actually converge at the food bank.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, and many food banks are putting together specific bags that are, called no-cook bags or something similar, where they're looking for items that can fill the needs of individuals who, may or may not have the ability to cook something. So those type of items really help them in that process.
And I was so interested to see, because it never occurred to me, that spices and herbs were on this list of items to provide. Obviously, that makes good sense.
Yeah, especially for those who are doing some cooking, and all of us like to have spices and herbs in our cooking, right? And that also allows you to eat healthier because you're not adding a bunch of salt to flavor your food, but adding those things that really, bring spice to your life and spice in your foods, and you enjoy them more.
And in terms of beverages, water is obviously a very good staple, but I don't know if it's readily available necessarily or not, especially during this pandemic time, and if people are living in shelters or even on the street. Is water a good thing, or what is the suggestion?
It is actually. So bottled water, single-serving bottled water is very much needed and asked for by our food access organizations. Is that especially unhoused individuals, but also those who, sometimes our house environments don't have the cleanest water available through the tap. So those are great things to provide, is that bottled water, even sometimes the sparkling flavored waters, but just try to find ones that don't have added sugars in them, where it's just like flavor and the bubbles, but without the sugar. And those are really valued by individuals as well. The other thing with beverages that I found really interesting and kind of of course, was that things like the shelf-stable milk products, so there are small individual serving things of milk, those both in dairy milk and then also milk alternatives are really helpful for many food banks that are helping children with backpack programs, because those can then go with, their meal or their breakfast they're having, and it's easier for them to store and then provide them out in a single serving.
Definitely important and so great to have for children, because sadly they are part of the population that is struggling with this, and to at least provide them some of that good foundation as a prevention really for their future is so critical.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're seeing food insecurity rates have gone up so much during the pandemic. Some of the surveys that just came back earlier this year showing that 27% of families in Washington had some level of food insecurity. And over half of those are families with children. We definitely have to think about the kids in this as well.
Yes, it's heartbreaking, and that's where we need to then think about heart in so many ways, and really think about this time of year in particular when we think about giving. So do it in such a thoughtful way to consider not just providing any kind of food, but good quality food nourishment so that we maintain as good a health as is possible.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And one of the other things that we also encourage individuals to think about in this is when you're identifying a food organization to work with, try to find out a little bit more about their population. Find out what type of cultures, backgrounds they come from, what the needs are that they have. Just because something is considered healthy on our end, like what you're used to, right? Like kale is something I consider to be healthy and a part of my diet. But that's not necessarily something that fits in all culture diets and, something they're used to eating and cooking. So it's great to connect with the organization and learn a little bit more about their needs.
Great point. And it helps to raise our consciousness, and I think helps us to just realize how we have such a broad spectrum of cultures in our community and so much to learn and to really embrace and appreciate.
That's true.
And so I think we've touched on the key things. I'm trusting that we have. Cherish, can you think of anything else that we need to add?
Well, I did want to just mention the website of where they can find the Healthier Food Drive Toolkit. It's at heart.org/Puget Sound. And once you land on our webpage there, you would go to the Access to Healthy Foods section. And there's a lot of different information on that page, but within there, you'll find the Stocking Healthy Pantries Food Drive Toolkit that you can utilize.
That is perfect. Yes. I guess that just presents the full package, and any other questions hopefully can be answered by going to the website.
That sounds great. Well,
yes.
Thank you for helping to share this message. And, really that building nutrition security is really important for all of our health, and especially those who are most vulnerable to social determinants of health and the impacts that they have. So thanks so much.
You are so welcome. I really appreciate your taking time with us this morning, Cherish, to help us to take a look at this, really open up our eyes and also our hearts so that we can make our community healthier and stronger.
Thank you, Kate.
Now, let's meet our second guest, Adrienne Alitowski, best-selling author of the new book, Clipped, a memoir about her life as an actress, then a mom, and during this period becoming an entrepreneur, and now author. Lots of good insights for all of us. So let's meet Adrienne. Adrienne Alitowski, good morning. Thank you so greatly for being with us this morning.
Good morning, Kate. It's so nice to be here with you.
And to be having an opportunity to speak about life, about young children, and launching really a whole new career and writing a book. Could your life be any more filled?
It has taken some twists and turns, yes. When I first began, I didn't know that I'd be here, talking with you about a book for sure.
But that in itself, I think, is just what is just such a great nugget of wisdom for us to realize that, despite what everything looks like in the moment, you just kind of take the next step and the next and see what doors open. And then voila, here you are with a new book.
Yes. And it began because I had been an actress, and I suddenly went, I better make sure to get into the motherhood phase of life because I don't want that window to close. And suddenly I had a baby, and suddenly I needed a product. I needed something to keep his blanket from falling off the stroller as we'd be, just going up and down the streets trying to get him to sleep. And then I became a mom inventor.
And I saw that and I thought, isn't that amazing? It again underscores that whole concept. And this is to share your experience and others to really take that to heart, that thing, necessity is the mother of invention.
Exactly. And my book is called Clipped. And the tagline is, a mom invents a way to hold her life together just as the world falls apart. Because I was trying to solve this problem and keep my child, he only wanted to sleep if he was covered and it was nice and dark and I was moving. I had to be moving. So it became, I just thought, well, if anybody sees me, they think there's that crazy mom again, because I would do all my errands and I would just hang all the groceries off the stroller and it would just be, I'd be pushing, this like huge vehicle just with a baby inside. and suddenly I thought, wait a minute, he keeps waking up, the stroller, the blanket, it's such a mess here. And then there I was inventing a product and not knowing that it was a particularly challenging time to launch a product in 2008. And we didn't know how bad it was at the time. So it took a few years for all that to play out. And then I was able to write about the experience.
And have a few laughs about it after the fact.
Yes, you have to. I mean, unfortunately, the children, they usually keep you laughing for some reason or another, if it's not to, tell you how awful you are and how wrong you are at everything you're doing. And you have to laugh at that too. Yeah, but it was quite nice actually last night at Thanksgiving. My son actually acknowledged me, which I was like, I was going to break down in tears about my having worked so hard to create this business and then having worked so hard to write a book, and that he was so proud of me. And so, there are moments where you think, okay, I can live another day here.
And acknowledge that you are his mom and he sees this. So somewhere along the line, you were doing the right things for him to be so wise.
I guess so. I'll take the credit.
Yes. Well, I think you ought to, Adrienne. And as well as for this wonderful product, because I think there's a play on it with the title of the book, Clipped, because that's what the Blankie Clip does, right?
Mm-hmm. Right. So the product Blankie Clip was a soft, padded, child-friendly clip. It looked like there was a sheep, a bear, and a duck design, and so it was also something to play with for the baby or the toddler, and then keeping your blanket on the stroller safely, and could go over the tray and could go over tubing and all of that, and then the metaphor of being clipped by the time and clipped by the economic forces that were bringing so many small businesses down at the time, and just not knowing what was happening, that the stores were closing and magazines were folding and just things were kind of tumbling down and not knowing why. And so I thought it was a good story to write so that people could understand that time period and how it affected the person that was on the ground, building a business, being a mom, trying to keep her family together. My husband was laid off, and how did that impact us? And how do you keep the joy in the home and keep going and just figuring out, okay, this isn't working, so let me try this. And so let me keep trying other angles until there's nothing else for me to do. And then understanding so much that happened that was beyond my control, and to tell that story. So I thought there was something in there and something that's relevant for today, and about pursuing one's passion. And everything is cyclical, and things come and change, and there's different needs, and there might be something today that somebody wants to bring to market or has an idea for, and hopefully there's something in my book that can help inspire them to do that.
Because
that would be wonderful.
Because really, this is so relevant in the time that we are living in and have been for nearly 2 years now.
Yeah, absolutely. Right? And whenever we're in a moment of crisis and we feel so alone, I think it's really helpful to read and hear other people's stories and feel connected and understand, okay, it's not just me, and okay, how did this other person do it? And I've always found strength in that, in reading other people's stories. And I thought, okay, it's my turn to tell the story and help inspire somebody else.
And stories are really kind of like this backbone, I think, for all of us, that we are encouraged by it. It gives us some spark that we just needed to take the next step. And I think that that's what you really are accomplishing with your book, Clipped.
That's definitely my goal. And I was really grateful. I had a girlfriend at the time, and she said, and I mean, she's still my friend, but she was so impactful because she said, I think you need to tell this story as both catharsis, but as a cultural artifact of the time. And when we are able to kind of connect to another time period and say, oh, okay, so what, this, like, it's almost this too shall pass, right? So this person went through this, and we are just all of us struggling to, kind of look like we have it all together and do it on our own and all of that. But there's often so much we can get out of those friendships and out of support. And that I feel like that's part of what the book is to offer that support to others.
Yes, so that with it, and particularly I think if anyone were to get the audio version, because you narrate it, right?
I'm going to. I haven't yet recorded it, but I absolutely will, because my background as an actress, I actually used to record books on tape, and that's what we called it back then when I was doing it, books on tape. There were cassettes. Oh, my God. But I used to do that for Scholastic, for children's books, and I loved it. And I recently, at my launch party for the book, I was reading from the book, and there was a big response of, you've got to record this, and of course, because it's my stories, I know how to tell it and the tone and all of that. And so I'm looking forward to doing that. So that's a project that's coming up.
Because, of course, now you need another project since you finished writing the book.
Exactly. Yeah. So the next one is to share, and I have a website, my name, AdrienneAlitowski.com, and I'm writing on there and putting other musings and things about my experiences being a mother and navigating life and all of that. And there's information about the book and the journey about it as well there.
So this, in retrospect, probably it was challenging, I'm thinking, going through it, but in retrospect, it was all the best things to do, right, Adrienne?
Oh, absolutely. And I think that whatever is that thing that is just burning in our bellies, right, that we just feel we have to do, is the right thing to do. And it may not turn out the way we think. It may have a different ending, or, it may put us through a lot of pain and, suffering. But there's a reason we're doing it, and there's a reason that idea came to you. And so I didn't know what I was doing when I began, and that I thought, okay, that's the point of telling the story, because each moment you're just kind of moving to the next and figuring it out. And so it's always worth it to follow one's passion, and I really believed in it. And then my next passion became the book, and there were so many obstacles. It just, it sounds so easy to say, oh, you wrote a book, but it means to actually sit down and put oneself in the chair and, look at the computer screen and actually start typing all those voices in your head of like, who am I? What do I think that, I'm not a writer, or who cares about you? All that thing that you have to go, okay, thank you for sharing. Thank you for really encouraging me today, because those voices, that's what they do, right? All they do is like tear us down. And then you just start writing. And then you have a little something, and maybe they share it with your partner, and you say, can you read this? And you get a little encouragement, or you show a friend and you get a little more encouragement, and then you just keep going. And eventually those pages come together and you have something called a book, and you take it to an editor, and, just step by step, it actually happens. But there's so many reasons to stop ourselves always. So I hope I'm helpful in that way, in that, and this was a long journey. I mean, the book itself, I began typing 10 years ago. So it's not like it happened instantly. And just that first way of telling the story was a little bit maybe, and a friend said, that part where you actually talked about like your relationship and your children, and that, I really like that. And I didn't even think that was going to be a part of the story. And then that ended up being what was the connector to people, and I didn't know that. So just have to start trying, and you'll get there.
So that is a really critical piece. And I also felt as you were sharing this, Adrienne, saying that you have to ignore those voices, the naysayers, that they're going to be there squawking at you, but you just kind of have to shove them aside.
Oh, yeah. And isn't that something that we're just born with, that team to just tear us down in our heads? I mean, they're not there usually encouraging us. I mean, it really is an interesting thing. Just the human condition. So once you hear those things and go, oh, there they are again, and now I have to just keep going. And they're all throughout the journey of the product, of even becoming a mother, of writing a book. And it started from when I was an actress. If I had to make a phone call or call an agent or a casting director or somebody, a producer, and I would say to myself, and I'd be so terrified to pick up that phone, and oh my God, and the heart starts racing and I'm sweating, and I'm like, no, can I do this? And my mantra has always been, in 100 years, we'll all be dead. And so I say that to myself, and I think, okay, so then just make the call. Who cares? I mean, really, what is going to happen if I actually connect with the person? Like, will the world end? I don't think so. So let's just try. And so that has helped me. And I certainly used that mantra as I was writing the book, and it just has helped me a lot.
Oh, that's very inspiring. And I think that that's probably something that can really speak to all of us in some way. But do you have any one piece of advice that you think is so important for someone who is a mompreneur?
Well, I would say, so you have an idea and you're attempting to do something, and you're going to make mistakes, and let that be okay. To not be afraid. So you're going to be afraid, and then you go, okay, so maybe the first prototype isn't the one, or maybe the first conversation isn't the one, or maybe the first place you turn and look for money isn't the one. I mean, I had to keep navigating that, and you just go, okay, that wasn't meant to be, and so now what's next? And there could be things that don't go right. You can make mistakes, and it's really okay, because the things that are the most gratifying are those things that you just fought for with all your might. And I just encourage you to do that. Follow what is just burning in your heart to do.
That's beautiful. Really, so super encouraging. Again, not just for moms and looking at a new possibility, but for really, that's life advice for any and all of us. Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. So when I was writing the book Clipped, I thought, okay, this can't be just a book for people who want to invent a product, because that's not a lot of people. I mean, there's some people who might fall in that category, but most of us are just living our lives, figuring out what we're doing and navigating parenthood and friendships and life and things that happen that are surprises, and maybe we lose a job, and maybe the economy is spiraling out of control. So I really wanted to connect to people in that way. And that was, I felt, more important, a story. And along the way, you'll find out actually how to get a product into a big chain store. And that might be interesting, I hope.
Yes, exactly. Well, all of this is so interesting, and it's just really such a gift to be able to connect with you and have this conversation, Adrienne. So let's let people know again where they can find out more information and get a copy of this great new book, Clipped.
Sure. And so I have a website, and it's my name, Adrienne, Adrienne, and my last name, Alitowski, ALITOWSKI.com. And on that site, there's links to all those great sites. The book is right now on Amazon and Barnes & Noble, and hopefully soon in a indie store near everybody. That's of course the goal as well, to get it into the bookstores near local shops. But for now, it's real easy to order online, and then you can find out more about my story and the product and all those fun things on my website as well.
Yes. Well, again, many thanks for sharing the book, the story with us, but also for giving us more insights this morning, Adrienne.
Oh, it's my pleasure. Thank you, Kate. I really appreciate it.
That brings us to the end of a very full hour of Inspirational Women with Adrienne Alitowski and Cherish Hart, and Sunday Morning Magazine with Dr. Amish Dave and Emma and Beth Christofferson. I'm Kate Daniels, your host, and I greatly appreciate your sharing this hour with me and these special guests. For details you might have missed or information you'd like to know, please just send me an email, kated@warm1069.com, and I will get right back to you. Also, if you want to listen again or to share these important stories with your family and friends, find the podcast on our Warm 1069 webpage. Just click on the podcast tab, then either of the show names, and then look for the guest names. I now wish you and your family a day of considering this holiday time, how to make it a joyful time for each of us, for the community. Have a week of the same, and then please plan to join me again next weekend for another hour of Sunday Morning Magazine and Inspirational Women on Warm 1069. Good morning.